Okay, we are live, and before we actually get into the topic, we'll get into the pre-show topic because this is live and no one is here watching. So who am I talking to? Someone who's clicking and watching the replay, I guess. And I don't know if you want to fast forward or whatever. Not that there's any really points to these streams. I have no idea what's going to go on, and I kind of have a little bit of a plan, but this is an impulse stream, like many of my streams like these. And we're here in my basement, and but the pre-show topic is signing on to do a live stream in the basement, because basically I went and I grabbed a laptop. Now I have a laptop that's sitting up in my room. I have a laptop that's sitting on the coffee table that I throw in my backpack and travel with. Basically, anytime I have an opportunity that work is e-wasting a bunch of laptops, I look through what they're e-wasting and grab a few gems out of the pile. And so I've always got tons of spare old laptops kicking around, and they work perfectly fine, and they get me by. So it's well, let's grab a laptop. This is laptop number 3 of the current pile of throwaway laptops, for lack of a better term. And so it's got a clean Windows 11 install on it, because basically I grabbed a few of these laptops, installed Windows 11 on it to start familiarizing myself with having some kind of a daily driver for Windows 11, because I'm still using 10 on my primary desktop, because 11's not playing nice with the audio properties of my video HDMI card. So anyways, grab the laptop, grab a power cord, come down the basement, throw a webcam on it, turn it on. Of course, it's got a bunch of updates. It wants me to reboot. So I reboot, it applies the updates. I go to sign into my email account, and of course, it's got Edge installed. So I use the one and only thing I ever use Edge for, which is to go download Chrome. And of course, Edge is like, hey, you don't have to do that. You have a browser. We're a browser. Yeah, it's fuck you, Microsoft. No one likes you. Go away. So I download Chrome, install Chrome, go to get signed into my email account. Of course, my email account is all like, hey, we want to make sure that you're really you, so click OK on your phone. And I go to my phone, no OK message goes in, so I click retry. Look at my phone, nothing comes through. I click retry. Look at my phone. Now, mind you, my phone is connected to Wi-Fi. Where's my wireless router? In the basement. Do I ever have a problem connecting to the wireless router with this phone? No. I mean, I'm on the first floor, I'm on the second floor, no problem. And it says it's connected on the phone, and it's all working fine. So it's of course, multi-factor authentication has reached the next level of annoyance, which annoyance is better than roadblock. Because it used to be multi-factor was roadblock. You can't get in? Well, fuck you. We don't think you are who you are. But now, multi-factor is baked in multiple ways to do it. We'll try another way. Well, we could text you a code. All right, great. Text me the code. No text comes through. So then they're like, well, you could go into your phone settings and go into your Google settings and go in here and under security and under here, and you'll have the codes over there and type in the code. So I'm doing that. And I go in there and I select my jguitars@gmail.com account. I go to the security tab. I go and I get the code. I type in the code. It says the code's wrong. I look at the screen and it's giving me a code for armyofquad@gmail.com, not the jguitars@gmail.com that I selected the app to give me a code for. And then all of a sudden, 10 times in a row, my phone's like, hey, is this you? Hey, is this you? Hey, is this you? And I got 10 yes buttons I could click. Because now all of a sudden, all my attempts decide to all come through at once after I've gotten onto the third method. And so I click yes, I click yes, I click yes. Of course, it's too late. At this point, on my laptop, it's asking me for a code. So I have to go try another way, click yes, alert comes through, I click yes, I get in. And then, of course, I got to log into StreamYard, which wants to email me a code. Then I got to go to my inbox, and I got to bring that up, and I got to type the code in, and then I'm in the StreamYard. So the point of this is that it took me longer to sign into StreamYard than it took me to tell this story. And I've been telling the story for 5 minutes. So that's my pre-show topic to give Mars and Dune an opportunity to see, oh shit, he's live. Let's see what this is. And now you're all here, and now we can all hang out. So Mars said, I just make a Nine-Night install and keep it on a jump drive. And I never, you know what? I actually used Nine-Night. No, I used Nine-Night on the last laptop. I haven't Nine-Nighted this laptop yet. Dune writes in, got to open email on phone to work. It's a game. Click all the yeses. Good morning, Gators. Good morning, Sir Mars. Hello, Dune. And we're here in the basement. And the reason we're here in the basement is because the thing about collecting hobbies like I do is that you feel like you're never getting anything done, but you feel like you're always working on something, and you're never really bored of what you're working on. But it's hard to get that feeling of accomplishment. And so I decided I want to work on something today. What am I in the mood to work on? I'm like, something easy. I don't know. So I've cleared off my workbench, which my workbench is my old corner desk that I used to use before I went to the futon method. Of course, over there we got the TV that's still work in progress. Of course, we got a quad receiver that was kicking around, and I've got 4 speakers set up around here so I can chill some quad while working at the workbench. And Dune's pointing out that it's 1 p.m. Mars time. Actually, it's, yeah, it is, because it's nearing 4 o'clock. Wait a minute. If it's nearing 4 o'clock here, then it's 3 Central, 2 Mountain, yeah, 1 Pacific. That's okay, because any time can be the morning time. That's the great thing about adulting. You don't have to wake up until you want to. Of course, the problem with using a basement floor as storage is that you might roll over something. At one point, I needed one of these 2-pole brackets, and then I ended up not needing it, and I threw it down here as a spare. It was still in its wrapping, and now it's destroyed. Onto the garbage pile. That's another weekend project, gathering up the garbage piles and throwing them into town bags, because I ain't got no room in the trash barrel. But it's Saturday. Well, any hour in Saturday is morning, right? Until it becomes Sunday morning. All right. So a while ago, I picked this little beauty up, and we'll adjust the camera here. And this here is like the first 45 player. And I don't mean like it's the absolute first one ever made. I mean it's like the first model that RCA commercially produced of 45 player. Now they may have produced multiple models at the same time when they launched it. I don't know the details. I just know that this is often described as the first 45 player. Because RCA launched 45 as a format, not as a companion format alongside the LP, but as a format on its own. Columbia developed the LP, RCA developed the 45, and they were both developing these in secret. And Columbia invited RCA over to like a meeting and demonstrate the LP and gave them the option to join them and buy in on this. Of course, RCA would have to pay royalties or licensing to Columbia, but then RCA would also make money on their product that they sold using the format. And meanwhile, little did Columbia know, RCA had this little thing they were working on, the 45. And so RCA said, we'll think about that. They went away. They never wrote back. And then RCA launched the 45, and Columbia launched the LP. The LP being having the advantage of holding an album's worth of material on one disc. The 45 playing at a faster RPM, so that offers an improved quality, being more compact. 45 lend itself nicely to the record format of the day. Keep in mind, the format before the LP and the 45 was a 78, which typically had a song per side. And you know, so it was very much a singles market. Certainly there were albums, but albums are literally albums of records. And so RCA kept that same mentality of records being a song aside. And obviously the 45 did quite well over the years as a singles format. Although RCA trying to launch it as the everything format next to the LP, obviously the advantages of the LP were going to show itself. I mean, RCA trying to sell classical works of music that were spread over multiple 45s that you had to stack up and have a break periodically to drop the next record. I mean, in the era of the 78, there was no other way, but now there was another way. Anyways, I'm digressing. Point is I found this at a flea market. I think I paid like 15 bucks for it, and I brought it home. And I'm like, what do I do with it now? Plug it in? Well, no. The cord was frayed and dangerous. Not to mention that it probably has a bunch of bad components in there. Now, there's a place online that actually sells repair kits for these types of things. And you put in the model number, and they'll sell you a kit. One price. They'll send you a box with a bunch of capacitors, a few resistors, a few other parts, a cartridge, because of the cartridges that these have dry out and won't work at all. This here is the original cartridge that was on here. I believe it has some kind of a material in there that dries out, or it's some kind of a material that absorbs water and then dries out, like a salt type of thing going on in there. So these never work at this point, and it's really not worth the effort of refurbishing or reconditioning these. I think there is an outfit that there's like one person that will recondition these, and I had that done to my Zenith 78 console because I wanted to keep that as it was originally. I believe it involves opening it up and replacing the material with an equivalent modern material and it's one of those processes that there's a fine art to it. So sending it off to someone that's well practiced at it is probably worthwhile. You could try to DIY it. That's not my bag. So I just got a modern ceramic cartridge on here that would like work in a jukebox. So I went through the kit and I did the things. One of the other things is that the idler wheel on these things always dry out and get cracked at this point. So this is the original idler wheel, and it came with a metal idler wheel that would accept a rubber gasket around the edge of it, which is cool because they give you two sets. That way, if that rubber gasket breaks, you don't have to replace the whole thing. You just have to slide a new one of these on. And I changed out most of the capacitors on this, and I never got it working. And then it went back in the basement, and I kind of gave up on it. I disassembled this and cleaned all the parts of the changer and put it back together. It got jostled around in the basement, and now the changer doesn't work right anymore. So it never got fully repaired when I last tried to do it, and I barely knew what I was doing, and then it fell into more disrepair. So basically, I'm pulling this out again to take it apart, dig into it, and see what I need to do, because I need to order some capacitors for my computer, and it's one of these things where it's like, well, if I'm going to order capacitors, let's review all my projects and figure out what else I need to order and get one big order of electronic parts. So I feel good about plugging this in, being that I know I've plugged this in before after changing capacitors. The thing is that there's an electrolytic capacitor in here that's in a can, and I didn't know how to change that because they gave me standard capacitors to change it out with, and I didn't have any room. These little black capacitors wouldn't fit there, so people tend to add rails or things on to these things. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what people were doing. It's so hard to find good help. But I've since figured out a few options there, so I might swap out that can capacitor for those. At one point I did have this making sound, but not consistently and not steady. Also, I don't know if the needle pressure was right on this, and then the changer got all janked up. So we're going to plug it in and see what our current status is. And it's got this little knob over here, and you turn it on, and it turns on the amplifier and the turntable at the same time. Now, another problem is that this kind of leather-like fabric, or this plastic-like fabric, the glue is worn off, and it curls up. And it's very difficult to glue these down all that well. I attempted to glue it down. I could not get it centered, so now it looks like a three-cornered hat. So I got to clean this up again. I'm going to have to take this platter off, clean up the residue of the pass-fail glue attempt. Maybe I'll try to flatten this out or iron this out, and I'll do a little more research on glue options and try to re-glue this again. But first, we got to get the changer working right. Something is clinking on something on every rotation, And if I hit the reject button, which should make the arm do its little back and forth moment, it just makes the thing stop spinning. And I basically got to back it up a little bit to uncatch something. So I probably need to tear that all apart again and review how those parts all go together. I've had this turned on for a while and it's no longer humming. So I'm getting no life on the amplifier. Not a hum, not a crackle, not a sound. So that is completely died at this point. Alright, so let's turn this off and flip this on its side and take some screws out. And before we do that, let's unplug it. And actually, I think what I'd like to do, because before I was getting a hum and sound, and now I'm getting no sound. And so my thought is, this is a tube amplifier that's built into it. Maybe one of my tubes has gone bad. So this is a good opportunity to review how to use my tube tester and figure out if I need to order some tubes. So we'll take these screws out. I'll put them in this box here, since this box has got all the other parts I'm using with this thing. 4 screws, and the bottom comes out. And I believe the amplifier is attached to the bottom when it comes out, and there's a few cables that attached the power supply to the turntable. And there's a wire coming out of the tone arm that comes into it somehow. Alright, so let's get that out of there. And, oh yes, we do have to take this knob off. It's our on-off volume knob. We'll put that also in our box here to not lose that. Alright, there we go. And that powers the motor, so we'll disconnect that for our convenience. And this piece of wire here connects what's coming off the tone arm into the amplifier, and there's no easy disconnect there. There's like a little relay here, I think, or an on-off switch that I believe mutes in between changes. I'm not sure how that works. I don't remember now. So we got 3 tubes here. I'm going to go ahead and take these off. And these tubes are warm to the touch from being powered on for a while. So I think, like I said, a good starting point here will be to test these tubes, because I got a feeling either something went wrong with the new capacitors I put in a few years ago, or something has gone completely wrong with the electrolytic capacitor that I've not replaced yet, or a tube has blown. And being that this thing is jostled around enough to dislodge record changer parts, I'm thinking maybe a tube has been jostled a little too much, or just gone out with power on and power off. Either way, it'll be good to confirm these tubes are good. So here's my tube tester. I'm running out of desk space, so let's move some things around, or I'm going to start dropping things. Alright, we'll put my parts over here. We'll move this unit off to the side here. I got some Allen wrenches I'm not using right now, so let's move those off to the side. There we go. Plenty of surface to put up our tube tester. Alright, so let me review what we do here. What we do here is we plug this in, and I think this comes with instructions. Depress off button and connect attachment plug to 110, 115 volts. Oh, so I gotta make sure, oh yeah, it's off. Okay. Set control A, B, C, D, and E to position listed on roller chart. Alright, so there's a roller chart in here that lists a bunch of tube model numbers and then lists the positions to put the dials in to test that specific tube. I think what we'll do is we'll try moving the camera to see if you can kind of see what we're doing here. That's not a great angle, but you get the idea. All right, so let's take a tube here, and let's see what it says on it. This tube is a Westinghouse tube. And it says 5W4. All right, let's look at 5W4. See if that's something on here. 5C, 5T, 5X. No, here we go. 5W4. And there's 2 plates on this. All right, so we set A to 2. Done. We set B to 2. We set C to 0. We set D to 9. And we set E to 6. And both plates are the same. And we set lever Y to 4. Alright, so here's 4, and that goes up to Y. And on plate 2, we set 6 to Y. Alright, so we'll do that. Now I got to figure out which one of these slots this tube goes in. That goes in this one up here. Okay. So now let's read up. So we've set our A, B, C, D, and E's. Return all levers to normal position. Oh, well, let's put those all to normal then. By using the lever rotation mechanism. Release off button by depressing the read meter button. Okay. Rotate line adjustment control until meter pointer lines up with line indication. Line adjustment. Oh, here we go. Huh. Well, our line adjustment is not adjusting. So we might need a tube tester. Oh, now is this supposed to be on condition or tube? Alright, so right now it's on the condition and it's warming up the tube. But my adjustment meter is low and my line adjustment is not bringing it up right. So this tester is a little off. That's a bummer. That's a bummer we can't get that needle in the right place. So our tests may not be accurate. So this may turn into a project on fixing a tube tester rather than fixing a turntable. I'm hoping that this test will still give us some idea. I'm going to proceed because we have it up here, but this is certainly not scientific. So we're supposed to let this tube heat, is what we're supposed to do. And I don't feel it heating up. Oh, whoa, when I did that again, now my line is on the center line. Interesting. The read meter button, basically when you hold it down you're reading, and when you lift it up it's in this position, and this is a position where we're supposed to... Okay, so that's warming up still, I guess. It's not good that we have to have our line adjustment turned all the way up to get it to be in adjustment, so maybe this machine... How do you test a tube tester? Anyways, while that's warming up, let's look at the chat. Excuse me, sir, do you have an electrolytic converter in a can? This hat, it has 3/4. He's either testing a tube or he's decoding secret messages from spies. That is true. That is very true. All right, this is not warming up, but this tube might be bad and will not warm up. And so I think our test will probably tell us that. So let's now see what we do. Readjust line adjustment control and throw the tube condition switch to the tube position.
perform shortage leak tests by pressing buttons 1 through 12, watching the neon lamp as each button is decreased. If neon bulb glows as any one or more buttons are depressed, with the exception of buttons listed under fill continuity, or those buttons listed as special, the tube should be discarded as defective. Okay, so the first is a short test, so let's take a look. Basically, this tube, let me get a straight edge here, because this scroll is a little crooked. It looks like 2 through 8 are supposed to light up the short. So 1 doesn't. Oh, 2 doesn't. 3 does. 4 does. 5 doesn't. 6 does. 7 doesn't. 8 doesn't. 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I think that's probably bad that we didn't light it up on all the ones, but this does. Let's see what this says now. If neon bulb glows with the exception, the tube should be discarded as defective. Now, it doesn't say what to do if the tube doesn't glow on any of those exceptions that are listed. So, note, all levers must be in normal position before and during short leakage test. And they all are. Okay. Depress the read meter button and observe the tube quality meter. Oh, it's if short circuits have not been indicated and neon glow has been obtained on those buttons listed under, then throw those levers. Okay, well that's no. So this tube's bad. So that means I need to buy another 5W4 tube is what I need to look for in my orders. Let's see what this tube is. This tube is hard to read. 50C5. $50's pretty high. I got 12s over here. 15, 25, 35. Oh, here we go. 50C5. All right. All right, so we want A on a 1. Oh, let's depress off. Set that back to condition. Make sure we reset all our levers. So A's on a 1, B's on a 3, C on an 8, D on an 8, E on 14. E doesn't want to turn. Oh, there it goes. E14. You sunk my battleship. Alright, so now we put the tube into the spot. And we do that to warm it up. And let's see. Is that tube getting warm? That tube's lighting up. That tube's warming up. Okay, so that's good. Our line adjustment is adjusted. Once again, not ideal because we have to turn line adjustment all the way up to have it centered on the line adjustment, but technically we're still just barely within spec. So this box probably needs some work, so that's another future project for another day. I think there's like 2 or 3 capacitors in here I could swap out. That might help because it's probably still have its original, and it's got a tube inside of it as well, which I would need to use another tube tester to test that tube. But being that I'm getting readings that are somewhat what I would expect, I expect that tube's probably good in here. Alright, so we're warmed up here. Now we want to throw this into the tube position. Now this one must show shorts on 2 through 5. Although it says continuity. Oh, you know what? I think I interpret the 2-8 wasn't 2 through 8. It was 2's continuity to 8, which means that 2 and 8 should light up, but others shouldn't light up. And I think, did we only see 2 and 8 light up? No, we didn't. Okay, that tube's just clearly bad. I'm replacing that tube. This tube now, 3 and 4 are going to light up. But must show short on 2 through 5. 50C5, grid short test, depress 2 and 5 together. This is weird instructions. Fill continuity, set control E at 12. Oh, so we want E at 12 for this. All right, so we want, let's test 1, no short. Grid short test to press 2 and 5 together. No, that's good. Okay. 2 must show short on 2 through 5. All right. 3, 4, and 5. Yep, that makes sense. No short on 6, no short on 7, no short on 8, no short on 9, no short on 10, no short on 11, no short on 12. All right, so our shorts, and then we also had to do the 2, 5 together for the grid test, which shows no short. All right. Now we need to set E back to 14, I believe. All right, and then let's take a look what we need to do next. If short circuits have not been indicated, neon glow has been obtained on those buttons. Let's see. Then throw the levers into position listed on the roller charts under W, X, Y, Z. All right, W needs to be at 2. X needs to be at 6. Y needs to be at 7. And Z needs to be at 5. Okay. Depress the read meter button and observe the tube quality meter reading. All right, and our needle went into the lowest section of the green good range and is slowly rising. So this looks to be a weak good, but it's not a weak. I mean, there's a yellow section in the middle that's weak, and there's a red section that's replaced. So this tube is testing good. All right, very good. All right, so far one bad tube, one good tube, and another tube to go. Now that tube is quite hot to the touch right now, so I've turned that off, and we got to let that cool before I can safely pull that out. But that gives you a chance to check the chat. Sir Myers writes, do they still make tubes, or is the world just using up its old stock? OX64 gets the fire extinguisher. I think there are some places that are still making tubes. I hear a lot about Russian tubes, although I don't know what that means in today's day and age. I think specialty tubes that are very expensive are made for guitar amps. I think there's a lot of old stock that's still out there. So yeah, I do think that there are still tubes being made, but I think anything that's being made today is very expensive. All right, let's start looking up what our third tube we need to test is. And this is an 8-4 something I can't read. Oh, shit. You know what? The kit I bought for this thing comes with a schematic. So let's see what the schematic says these tubes are. All right, 50C5, we tested that. 35W4, that's not what we tested. What was this bad one? This bad one is a, this bad one's got a black spot on it, so that's probably why that one tested bad. That might have something to do with it. Damn it, I can't even find what I read off of this anymore. Oh, 35W4. Yeah, okay. All right, that's not what I tested. I tested something in the... Oh dear, I tested this as a 5W4, and this is actually a 35W4. Well, it's hard to read gray text on a gray background since this has charred the glass, which doesn't bode well for it. But yeah, I tested this wrong. 35W4. All right, we're going to retest this one now correctly. All right, so is this one cooled enough that I can pull it out? Yes. All right, so this one's good. So I'm going to put this back over here with the radio to be put back in. And now we're going to look up how to properly test a 35W4. So yeah, you might want to, if you're not sure about what you're reading on the tubes, check your schematics. But then again, don't rely on your schematics, because I've found tubes that were replaced with different tubes that I guess might be compatible. Like this TV, I pulled the tubes out. Not all the tubes match what the schematic says they should be. But that's a good way to verify. All right, so here's 35W4. So let's put this back in here. And so now we want A on 2, and we want B on 3, and we want C on 0, and we want D on 1, and we want E on 13. Okay, so now we hit the read meter to put it in condition mode to warm it up. And let's see if we get any heat on it this time. Oh, now it's warming up. This tube might actually be good. I may have just done a bad test with the wrong settings. And hopefully I didn't ruin anything doing that, but I don't think I did. So let's take a look at what we're going to see for continuity. So on this one, continuity is going to be 3, 4, and 6, which I think is what I read when I tested continuity with the wrong settings on here before. I was expecting 2 and 8, and I was misinterpreting that as 2 through 8. So when I saw 3, 4, and 6 light up, but the others not, that's when I thought I was reading wrong things. But no, this tube might very well be good, and it is warming up now. All right, so let's throw it in tube, and let's test our shorts. No short on 1, no short on 2, short on 3, which is to be expected, no short on 4, no, short on 4, which is to be expected, none on 5, but there is on 6, which is expected, none on 7, none on 8, none on 9, none on 10, none on 11, none on 12. All right, so no, my continuity test is actually correct now that I have the right number in front of me. So now let's take a look at our levers, and we want to set W to a 6. Yeah, right. And nothing on X, and Y it will be set to 5, and nothing on Z. And now let's go ahead and read. And yes, this tube is good. All right. Let's see if we can get that one out of there without burning. No, that's a little too hot. All right, so 2 good tubes. OX6 writes in, both tubes and solid-state transistors are not being made as good as they used to, so people sometimes look for old stock. Mars writes in, I used to have an old tube amp someone gave me. I used it to heat up my room. It worked great. Dude writes in, too bad Johnny does not know a Radio Shack dude to help. Pause for lull. What? I don't know. I guess we could bring Brian on here and see if he can pull out a catalog to look up a reorder part for me. That's about as much as a Radio Shack employee could do. Anyways, let's figure out what our third tube is here, since I've not been able to quite read the number on here. So we did the 50C5, we did the 35W4. So our third tube, according to the schematic, should be a 12AV6. And let's see if that matches with what... Let me see if I see anything that looks like a 12AV6 on here. I don't. I don't see a 12AV6 on here, although I had this gray spot over here that's no, nothing on there. I see 8-4 something that's scratched off. Should I test this as a 12AV6? Since something that's equivalent to a 12AV6 should still test the same in theory? Oh, here we go. Here it is. 12AV6. All right, excellent. This is right. All right, let's see if we can get this out now without burning ourselves. There we go. Put that over there. Plug this one in. There we go. Change our angle a little bit so I can see the tube glow. All right, so let's look up 12AV6. There we go, 12AV6. Oh, there's 3 sections of test on this. A triode and 2 diodes. Alright, so we want A on 1, B on 3, this is for the triode test, C on 12. Let's see, I did pull my levers down and turn this off, and I'm back to condition. Alright, C on 12, D on 32, and E on 10. Alright, now let's warm it up. Alright, our needle is up on the adjust line, so that looks good. And our tube is starting to glow a little bit on the tip. That is good. Things are looking as we expect them to. So actually, I may have 3 good tubes here. So I might have another problem causing my amplifier to not come on and give me a nice hum. Of course, the next thing I'm going to try doing is changing out the electrolytic capacitor can for some modern capacitors, figuring out where I can mount a rail on this thing to mount the replacement capacitors to, and looking at the schematic to figure out how to properly, because that can capacitor has a few components to it, and it's got some resistors soldered to it, so I'm going to have to take the resistors off of there and move things over. So I want to get some good pictures and get a good understanding of what's moving where and how I'm doing this. Alright, so that should be nice and... Uh-oh, they found me. Oh, no, they're going off in distance. Okay, so, let's see. Do we have any continuity tests on this? Yes. Continuity between 3 and 4. Okay, so let's throw that in the tube mode. 1 is good. 2 is good. 3 lights up. 4 lights up. 5 is good. 6 is good. 7's good, 8's good, 9's good, 10, 11, and 12. Alright, no shorts on this tube, so that's good. So now to continue testing the triode, we want to put our Y on 7 and our Z on 1. And let's see what we get. We get good. Okay. So now to test diode 1, we need to move A to 3. And we need to move C to 0. And we need to move D to 27. And E stays on 10. Okay. Do we test the continuity for each one of these, or is that just a tube-wide test? Because the filter continuity only shows on the first line. See, the 3, 4 is still so short. So yeah, basically I already tested my continuity. Alright, so now the test diode 1, we need to move 6 to Y. And That's it. Oh. Oh, whoa. We're, oh, there we go. It's just warming up that portion. We're just barely in the good on that one. Of course, the real test of a tube is how it works in the circuit that you're putting it in. Because a person with one tube tester always knows if their tubes are good or bad. A person with more than one tube tester is never certain. So the real test is how it works in the circuit. So this tube may very well be a bit weak on the diode 1, and that could be... all right, so let's check diode 2. Our A through E settings are the same. The only difference there is we're going to put Y on a 5. And that is also giving me a weak low end of the green good. But both of my tests moved into the green. And actually it is creeping up a little bit as it warms up more. Okay. So all these tubes tested good. So the tubes are unlikely to be our problem. Although the diodes test a little low on this. But I don't know what that means or if that's normal or what. I don't have a feel for these tubes, so I'm just purely ready to be. Someone might go with that, go like, oh yeah, it's in the green, it's good, that's normally low, or someone might go, ooh, that's a weak good. All right. So let's figure out. Let's go ahead and put our tube tester away and figure out what we need to do next. All right, next we need to open up the amplifier here and take a look. So this can capacitor with the cardboard covering is the one capacitor I've not replaced on this yet, because the parts that the kit sent me were put down someplace. Oh, here they are. Basically, I've got these black capacitors, and I don't know if that can's got 2 or 3. I got a few other parts in here that I ended up not needing. They sent me a bunch of resistors too, but all my resistors tested fine, so I didn't change them. But I guess I could. This kit gave me all the capacitors and resistors it needs, and even gave me an extra capacitor I didn't need because not all models have it. Or like C4 varies from model to model, so this kit had an extra capacitor, but I believe these 2 capacitors are replacing this can, and I didn't have a place to put them. But since I last tried this, I did buy these little things. So I could put one of these on somewhere in there and have a point to basically solder these capacitors to and the resistors that come off of these and tie them into the circuit. So that's what I need to come up with and I'll probably leave this in place not connected, just so that if anyone opens it up it looks right. Not that that's a big deal. I could just remove this and have it not there anymore. But I think most people just leave those in place removed from the circuit. Alright, so let's take out our screws and see what we're dealing with here. Now mind you, this is one of my earlier recap jobs. Not that I've done many of these. So how confident am I that I didn't mess something up in here? not very. But like I said, when I first did this, I actually was getting sound out of the speaker, and now I'm not. So something has gone wrong in the time that it sat here. Alright, so as you can see, we got all these little yellow capacitors that had been put into place where the old capacitors were taken out. And over here we have 2 resistors and a bunch of wires that come to these. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connections on this can. Alright, where did I put down my schematic? Ah, it fell on the floor. Let's see if I can figure out what this is on the schematic, because it should be a capacitor that uses the same number for different components. Oh, here we go. C5, C5A, C5B, 40 MF and 80 MF. No. Let's see. This is 80 microfarads, and this is 50 microfarads. So I'm guessing, and I don't see a C5C. And basically the positive side goes to a point and the negative sides go to ground. So what I could do is I could put one of these rails in and screw it to the chassis, which is grounded. Oh wait, this has 2 grounds. This is one of those things that has the look at C7 over here. C7 ties ground to ground, because that's a logo for ground. That's a logo for ground. But they're different kinds of ground: common ground and chassis ground. Okay, so C5A and C5B need to be tied to chassis, to common ground. But where is common ground? Oof, I got to figure that out. I got to figure out how to tie these to common ground. And I'm guessing there's one ground on. Actually, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 legs coming out of this thing. Let's see, there's a resistor that ties 2 of the legs together. Oh, that would probably be R10 here, because then that comes over, that does combine both the positives. And then there's another resistor here that is joining 2 portions. Of course, if one of those is common ground, then that just means there's a resistor that goes between one of these and common ground. Or maybe this is, no, that's not a capacitor, that's a resistor. What resistor is that? Well, let's, this is why I hate reading schematics, because you have to figure out what's what. Well, there's resistor 11, but resistor 11 ties from one of these capacitors to a tube. Resistor 10 ties between the 2 capacitors. Resistor 6 ties it to another tube. So I don't know what the hell these 2 resistors are. See, I don't know how to make sense of this. I really don't know how to make sense of this and how to properly replace. I guess if I removed this can, I should be able to find some notifications of what is what. Well, you know, one thing I could do is I could test continuity to figure out which of these legs are ground. But then again, I don't even know what ground is, because ground is common ground, which is not the same as chassis ground. So I can't check continuity to the chassis, I don't think. And the point of that is that it makes sure our common ground is not. I guess with these types of things, if you use your chassis as your common ground, the chassis could become hot. And you don't want that. That was acceptable for a period of time on certain radios. So be careful when working on those. But I think I've seen that where there are schematics of different variations of the same model that later on added a chassis ground, common ground, and a capacitor that connects the two of them. That basically isolates your chassis from being hot, if I'm understanding correctly. I know just enough to be dangerous. All right, let's see what Mars said. Oh crud! Thanks, Gators, for reminding. I need to take the ground round to thaw. Okay. But which type of ground are you thawing? So yeah, somehow I need to figure out how to put 5A and 5B into this circuit. And I got a bunch of capacitors that are coming. Oh, you know what though? These two capacitors, they're probably connecting here to a common ground. And as long as that continues to be common ground, that'll be common ground. Okay. Because I don't see any capacitors coming off of these capacitors. Basically, if I look at C5A, there's two lines coming off of the positive terminal. And one comes over here and goes to the resistor that ties it to C5B's positive, and then continues on up to the transformer for the speaker, or the coil for the speaker, or whatever. And the other direction goes off to R11, which then ties it to I don't know where these wires go. But if I go off the positive of this, we got that resistor, and then we go over here, we got another resistor that goes to a... Alright, so these two wires probably go off to resistors. So these are probably... These two legs are probably our capacitors' positives. And these three legs are probably... Well, then again, then why is there a resistor between these three legs? But some of these are probably common ground, and this probably is something else. Well, we can start testing continuity between these. See, this is where I got stuck last time. I don't know how to make sense of this darn thing. And I went to the forums and asked repeatedly for help. And I got a bunch of the same old bullshit. Well, you just need to replace the capacitors. Well, you just need to, look at the schematic. Well, you just need to figure it out. And it's like, how the fuck? All right, where does this wire go to? This wire go... Okay. I can't make sense out of any of this. Is there a third portion of this capacitor somewhere? Oh yeah, there is. There's a C5C. That's 20 microfarads. That's our problem. And that has a resistor between the two portions. Okay, so now this is starting to correlate a little bit more. So now if I can figure out these resistors, that'll tell me something. Let me get my multimeter. I'll be right back. Alright, so I need to find my third capacitor, my third replacement capacitor. So where did my, here we go. Oh, it's probably this little black one. This little cutie is probably 20 microfarad. 25 microfarad, close enough. So we got a 25, we got a 50, and we got an 80. Which are replacing 20, 40, 80. Okay. Now, let's see. So we're looking for R10, which is 2700 ohm. And where did I find that other C5C? I found C5C somewhere on the schematic. There we go, C5C, which has across the two terminals a 150 ohm resistor. And of course I could do this with the color codes, but I just want to get a quick reading off of these, see what we got. All right, that one's about 170. 150, 170. Okay, so these two legs, one of these is the positive for C5C. And the other side is a common ground. And then these two legs, one of these is the positive of C5A, the other one's the positive of C5B. And then that resistor is probably 2.7 kilo ohm. And that's actually reading at a 5.5, although we're reading it in series. Or we're reading it in the circuit, so that could be altering what we're reading. We could replace those resistors if we need to. I do have replacements, and if we're going to have to take them off, I might as well find the replacements and put those on. So now to figure out if we got continuity between any of these legs, because basically these two legs are positive terminals. One of these is a positive terminal, one of them is a common ground, and then this leg here is probably a second common ground. So whatever this has continuity with, all right. So these are our two common grounds, which means we can leave everything soldered to those two things, which means we really just need to remove everything off of this and connect those to the positive terminal of our replacement C3. I mean, heck, I could remove, yeah, and then I'll put like a rail someplace and tie these together with the positive end of this, and then tie the negative end of this to common ground somewhere, which I could just wrap it around these legs here. All right, so I need to mount a rail somewhere. Anyways, we are reaching the 5 o'clock hour, and I need to prepare some dinner tonight at some point. Although I guess 6ish is usually our dinner time, so I could probably. Do I want to start? Basically, I'm not going to finish this today. All right, what did I figure out? Let me review what I figured out. All right. So we want to remove that, is what we want to do. All right, so let me, before I warm up the soldering iron, let me dampen my sponge and then figure out if I have the, oh yeah, that's a good tip. That's a good, nice, thin tip. We'll, let me dampen my sponge and then we'll fire up the soldering iron. So yeah, I'm going to desolder that leg, because that leg is going to go, the two things on that leg are going to go to the positive terminal of my replacement capacitor. Actually, let's figure out where we're going to put a rail for this thing. I was just holding an open pack of these. I don't want to keep opening up a pack of these every... Oh, here we go. Right in front of me. All right, so we need to screw this into somewhere on here where it's not going to interfere with other things. So I think we got plenty of room right here. And that's going to offer plenty of clearance to close this back up. So... And this middle one's going to be chassis ground, which we're not going to connect anything to chassis ground. So we don't need to solder that to make sure it's a solid connection. If anything, we just need to break that off so that no one ever puts anything on that. And then we have two isolated contacts to tie things to tie our capacitors to, if that's going to be enough even, because we do need to... So we might have to put two of these on, which means I'm going to move this over a little bit to give me room for a second one over here if I need to. And I got little screws that I can screw these on with. Of course, which means it's going to, people are going to see a screw in here when we open this up, but that's not really a big deal. So that means we need to drill. So we got to break out the power tools. Alright, let's find a good bit for this. Let's see, we want to, these are number 632. What does that mean? I don't know. But it means I want a hole that's bigger than the threads of the screw, but smaller than the head. Alright, that's smaller than the head. That's bigger than the threads. That's probably going to be perfect. Alright, let's get that in there. Alright, let's see, where do we want to put this? We want to put this right about there. So we want to put a hole right about there. I should probably be wearing eye protection for this, in case little bits of metal come flying up out of here. Do I have eye protection? I don't know. I thought I had a set of... yeah, I do. I absolutely do. One of these boxes behind me, I should. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Alright, let's review again. Right about there is where we want to put a hole. We'll go slow. And we've made no progress. Okay. Man, drilling holes in this is not easy. I probably need to get this in my vise to get a good firm hold on it rather than holding it with my hand. Of course, I'm attached to this whole thing here. Of course, having wires attached to all these things that don't come off easily keeps this complicated. Alright, there we go. There we go. Now, we can go ahead and clamp this down in a vise. Alright, now where did I say we're going? Going somewhere about there. I actually have a little indentation where I was previously drilling. So now, there it is. Beautiful. All right, let's grab one of our screws and let's attach that. All right, and a nut. All right, and we'll tighten that down. All right, before we tighten that too much, let's make sure that that doesn't... Oh, good, that'll fit perfectly in there, yes. Excellent, excellent, excellent. That is perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and grab my screwdriver and pliers. And let's tighten that down. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this wire off of this leg. We're going to attach it to one of these rails, and that's the same rail that we're going to attach the positive end of our 20 microfarad capacitor to, which is actually a 25 microfarad capacitor that's replacing our 20 microfarad capacitor. One thing we could do is test if these resistors are still measuring correctly, just out of curiosity, because I do have a capacitance meter. So we know that between that and the common ground we should get 20 microfarads. So let's see what we measure on these two. Oh, that's nano. There's micro. And I'm measuring 30 microfarads. I was, now I'm reading 0. There it is, 30. Okay. So we're getting 30 there. So one of these should be 40, one of these should be close to 40, and one of these should be close to 80. So this is reading at 60, and this is reading at 120. capacitance have gone up on these. So I believe the one on the right here is our 40 and the one on the left is our 80. We'll do a little comparison with our schematic to try to confirm that. But, okay, let's warm up our soldering iron. Let's see if we can burn this place down. I mean, let's see if we could do some soldering. Alright, get my plunger here, because we want to desolder the solder on here. Oftentimes, they recommend applying new solder to the old solder before removing the old solder to make it easier to remove the old solder. I'm going to start by just trying to remove the old solder, see what I get. Because these contacts have big holes in them that we should clearly see a hole if it melts the solder and sucks it out. It ain't like those little... A lot of times I see people doing the new solder on old solder trick when they're trying to get, you know, the pins off a chip that, you know, you're dealing with like micro soldering. But this is pretty big stuff we're working with here. All right, so we've warmed our soldering iron up. Make sure the tip is clean here, rubbing it on our damp sponge. All right, now let's go ahead and melt our wire insulation. Steady, steady, nice steady hand. And I can smell the lead fumes. Yeah, it's probably a bad idea to breathe in old solder. So you might want to try to keep breathing to a minimum while you're melting this stuff. And no, it is not melting easily for me. So yeah, maybe let's try to apply a little bit of new solder to that. See if that helps. Well, it's attaching to the wire. Not really doing much to the solder on here, though. Well, we could probably trim this wire off of here, actually, because this wire has got some slack to it. So we really don't need to desolder this wire. There we go. And now it's just a matter of reaching this where we need to reach this, or replacing it. Let's pull this through here. And actually, it might be a good idea to attach our second rail that we know we're going to need, which will pull us closer to this. Because these two wires can go up to these two easily, no problem, probably. Although, I don't know how much slack we have on those two wires. Yeah, you know what? This wire can reach here. This wire can reach our first portion on the rail. All right, so let's strip the end of that wire. There we go. So we're going to put that in there, fold that over, and we need our 25 microfarad capacitor. All right, let's see. Arrow's pointing to negative, so this end that the arrow's not pointing to is positive. So that's going to go on there. And the other end of this is going to attach to these two capacitors' legs here, because that's our common ground. There's really no need to create another common ground rail at this point. But the other thing we need to do is we need to put this resistor on here. And that resistor is brown, green, brown, silver. Let me just verify that resistor is what I expect it to be by Googling the code, because I'm not good at that memorizing stuff. And thanks for the tweet, Mars. You're better at promoting my show than I am. All right, a brown, green, brown resistor. Oh, resistor calculator. All right, first bound is brown, green, brown is the multiplier. The tolerance is silver. Calculate. That's 150 ohms plus minus 10%. Okay, and I believe that's what we saw over here. Yes, 150 R9. So we may as well cut that resistor out and find our R9 replacement in the kit that we bought. R11, R9. R9, and that is a brown, green, brown with a gold band instead of a silver band, which probably means it's even better tolerance. Yeah, brown, green, brown, gold is 5%. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to all right, so let's cut that this resistor out. There we go. And that retires that capacitor. And basically we want to get one end of this resistor onto this common ground connection. I believe these two connections should be the same, but just to be consistent with how this was wired in case that does make a difference and I'm overlooking, I'd rather wire one end of this resistor into this contact. Of course, this solder isn't desoldering all that easy. There should be a hole that I could free up to put this into. Our solder doesn't even want to melt at 842 degrees. That's the thing, I crank this up and the solder still don't melt. Alright, let's try putting a little bit of fresh solder on that. Oh, there we go. Now we got let's see, is there anything I can fish this through? Will it go in? Because I really want to get a good contact on this. I wanted to get it into the terminal and wrapped around and nice and solid in there before I put a piece of solder on there. Because I think they say good soldering, good connections shouldn't rely purely on solder. That should be, but this is not giving me anything useful. All right, let's wrap and twist this around here. All right. My needle nose would be better for this. All right, let's get a loop in here and just solder it around that. All right, so we want to get that around there. I really want to get that tight around there, though. All right, let's see if that can get a good solid connection on that. All right, that's soldered on there nice and secure. So the other end of this leg is going to come up into here. Of course, now we're getting in the way of other things we're going to have to undo later. So we might want to hold off on soldering this until we figure these two out and undo these two and put that other rail on there. But basically that's going to go there, and that's where our C5C positive end is going to go. And I just broke that resistor. Fuck! Okay. Are there any other 150 ohm resistors in this circuit that I've not replaced? R11, no, 250, 2700, 150, that's R9, R470, 270, 4.7, 120, All right, so I need to order a 150 ohm resistor in addition with the capacitors I'm ordering. All right, so we're gonna pick this up next weekend with, if I'm here, with and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hang the positive end of this capacitor over here to remind me what we're doing. Not to mention I have video evidence of what we're doing here. And that's got to go to a common ground connection, so that'll go over to here. So basically we need to get a resistor between here and here. We need to desolder these two wires and take that resistor out. We'll probably just put another resistor between that rail and another rail. All right, we got a game plan. But I need to replace this resistor because the leg broke right off right near there. So that's shit. Yes, and Dune sent a bunch of shit emoticons. Thank you. That's exactly what just happened. But this gives us time to try to clean off the mess I made here. Because really, I was all right. Let's get some of this solder off of here. See if we can clean this up a bit more, and see if we can get those wires off of there. Only the new solder wants to melt. The old solder does not want to melt. I think the tip of my soldering irons tend to not get as hot as the rest. So a lot of times I start like trying to rest
the sleeve to try to get some melting to go on. I always seem to struggle to get a good melt on the solder. Okay. All right. Well, let's not touch that. Let's find something else to grab that with. There's our broken piece of resistor wire. So at least we got off the garbage we put on there. But we still haven't gotten these two wires to come off to get a nice clean solder onto here, or find the hole in the contact. Although this pin looks a bit, I don't know what this pin is that they're all connected onto it, but it doesn't look like a normal lead that has a hole in it that I could free up to pass through a new wire into. Or at least it's been misshapen or just covered with way too much solder from whoever was last in here, because I didn't put all this solder on here except for the solder I put on today. But I didn't touch this pin last time. Alright, well, anyways, this wire came off of that, and this needs to get attached to the positive on that, and also needs to get attached to the that resistor that needs to go between there and that, and attach to these two wires here. So either we could take these two wires off of here and put them on this rail, and have this rail act as our common ground and our positive for our 20 microfarad capacitor. Although, and then I don't know how I want to do this exactly, but I do know that I don't have the resistor I need to finish this. And we're getting to the point where I need to wind down and start thinking about dinner, because I need to open up the packed ground beef and sniff it, and that'll tell me whether I can start drinking or if I need to go out to the grocery store. Dune writes in, brown, green, brown, silver and gold. Yeah, we upgraded our silver to gold, but the gold broke. Now the old silver one here still has legs, but not very long legs. So I mean, yeah, that's a bad idea, trying to reuse this if I were to put it on two rails that are right next to each other. I guess I could make that a common ground, solder this across these two, move these two wires up to here, if these two wires are long enough to reach up to there, which I don't think they are. And this wire is certainly not long enough to reach over to there. So I'd have to start replacing these wires is what I would need to do, which I could do. But then that's more soldering and more things to break. Not to mention that we tested this resistor as not being quite 150 ohms anymore, I believe. Although we tested it in the circuit. Now that it's out of the circuit, let's see what this 1940s resistor test set. Because, yeah, I didn't really go into... yeah, the 45 was launched in the 40s, actually. So this is a 1940s model little turntable. And the 45 was popular with the kiddies, apparently. With the younger generation that typically would buy a lot of singles and was into the singles market. So and let's put that on the 200 ohm range. Let's see if this tests at 150 out of circuit. Of course, in order for it to do that, it's got to stay put.
170. 172, 173, 175, 171, 176. Well, that's because my connections are moving around. Basically, this is testing at about 170. And what was this supposed to be? 150 within 10%, which means 165 to 135, because 10% would be 15 of 150. So this has gone a little out of spec, but not bad. So yeah, this resistor could, if we were determined to do this today, we could probably get this done with this little resistor with what's left on here, but that's a bad idea. So the question is there anything else I need to order my computer capacitors? Because this here is the capacitor I ripped off of the PC card of the Computerland computer that disabled the reset circuit and allows that computer to work now without any problems. But I want to replace that circuit, this capacitor, to restore the reset button if I want to restore it back to factory state. You know, like, if I want the computer to be as it should be with a working reset button, even though I never need it or never use it, I'll probably want to try putting one of these, a replacement capacitor for this into the board and see if the problem comes back or not. And either the problem's gone away and then I can put the reset button back in place and it resets again, or the problem comes back and I know, well, it wasn't this capacitor that was the problem. And I got two other capacitors I could try to replace, which I believe are taking the same value as this one. But before we start tearing apart that project, I got this open on the bench mid-process. I need to finish this. So I'm going to get an order of something in this week. Now the other project I have that I could look into ordering parts for would be this thing. Let's clear a spot on the table. We'll go ahead and push this back a little bit. I forget how much I paid for this, but this was a flea market find. And I think it was something like 20 or 15 bucks. And this is a model of a similar thing. It's also an RCA. It's also from the same time period. But this is a model that's more of a suitcase. I mean, they're both got everything built in. And they both need to be powered by AC. But this one is more of a suitcase with a handle model. But it's the same type of thing, a little 45 player. And this one I've not worked on any. And this one also has a tone control in addition to the volume control. And I don't know if I've ever plugged this one in. This cord is not too janky, though. Let's go for it. And it comes to life. There doesn't seem to be an on-off switch for this thing. It seems to just work when it's plugged in, which surprises me a bit. You'd think that there'd be some way to turn it off while it's plugged in. Now this is a 6EY3A, and I think oh, you know what? No, this is a 6EY3A. I bought a kit for this one too, but I only had the paperwork here. I don't know where the rest of my kit for this one is. Unless it was... No, this is the 9EY3. 9EY3, 6EY3A. So I've got paperwork here that suggests I bought a kit for this, or I printed this out and kept it. I thought I may have, you know, I might have a kit for this somewhere. Ooh, we got sound. You know what this means? This means we have to try to play a record on a busted needle that's 70 years old, at least. Let me go find a sacrificial 45. So you've all stayed for the test run. I did not find a sacrificial BG's 45, unfortunately, but this is as is from a flea market with no fixing up or tweaking at all, with original cartridge and original ancient needle. Who knows how many hours are on this thing? Oh, this is an on-off switch. But this should also be the reject. So the reject is not triggering the changer. So we gotta force the 45 down onto the platter and see if we can move the arm over manually. This arm is not resting down right. Yeah, there's a reason this is a sacrificial 45. So yeah, the changing mechanism on this is completely janked and won't even lower the needle all the way to the record. Although if I put a stack of records on here, it would probably be high enough to reach that. Although the pivot of this is not moving very well. Although there's some wiggle in there, so we could probably get away with making this make sound if we put a stack of sacrificial 45s on here to lift it up. So for the sake of closing with something interesting, let me go grab a few more sacrificial 45s for testing purposes. All right. And yes, Dune, you did hear Alexa. And hello, Chuckle Bump. This has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but where did you get that T-shirt from? One will wear it with pride. This was a birthday or Christmas gift. Actually, I think Christmas gift from my dad. One of those things that an ad popped up online where he was browsing someplace, and he was like, "Oh, that's too perfect." So, might do a little Googling. All right, let's try putting 5 45s underneath our sacrificial 45. and see if that lifts it up high enough to meet the needle that won't lower down all the way. So that we can end the stream with something doing something. Dropping these down manually is not easy. This came from my pile of stuff that I've bought multiple times and went through one by one and determined which one was the better copy and put them in my collection. And then these were left for Seth to go through and take what he wanted, which he didn't want any of them. He took some. And so now these are basically stuff I need to give away or sell or make disappear somehow at some point. All right, let's see if that's going to rest on there. Yeah, that will rest on there. Now, will we get a sound? And let's... Basically, we've got to put this arm in a place where the wiggle room is within the play surface. Okay, so I think what's happening there is I think that needle is so fucking shot that it's just sliding across the thing. Yes, that was Tom Jones. Yes, I accidentally bought multiple copies of Tom Jones, She's a Lady, and that was the one that tested out as being in lesser condition of the copies I had and went on the reject pile. That song always makes me think of PBS did an advertisement for Keeping Up Appearances because they were rerunning Keeping Up Appearances, and the ad that they put together involved Hyacinth shots of Hyacinth Bouquet doing and yelling things in between the verses of Tom Jones, She's a Lady, which then ended with like a very slow, dramatic shot of her running the feather duster from the opening credits. I thought that was a clever promo for that show. That's what happens when you have a bunch of Americans advertising a British TV show. You get Tom Jones to do the backing music. All right, so that's another project for another year or decade or century. Because we still got to finish up this one that we got open here once I buy the resistor that I broke. And of course I will buy 10 of those resistors. That gives me 9 more times to fuck it up. And then we'll figure out how to move the other things over. And then I still have to tear apart the record changer component on this one and figure out why the record changer isn't working on that. And figure out how to firmly glue the mat back to the platter. So yeah, we got our work cut out for us on this one, but we've actually made a small step in the right direction. And of course, there's the other question. Someday when I do come back to this, what happened to the kit that this paperwork goes to that I bought for this? And if I don't find it, I might have to buy another kit. Or maybe I'll just sell this off at some point, because who needs 2 of these? On the one hand, part of me is like, no, it's cool. It plays 45s and it has a handle on it. But on the other side, it's like, yeah, but it ain't battery powered. The handle ain't really good for much. What am I going to do? Carry it to another house? I mean, this one carries just as easily with a power cord. The only difference between this and that is that this one's got a handle and it's ugly. They both plug in, they both pick up easy. Clearly this is the better of the two. So I really kind of am like, it's one of those purchases that like, it's cool, it's cheap, why not? Because I really didn't need another project. I really should have passed on this. Not to mention, it's missing the little logo thing that screws in on the top here. So that was probably a mistake to purchase that. It would probably be a mistake to even pursue fixing that up. But, you know, it's on the pile. I'll probably never get to that one. This is what we're going to finish up next. And then maybe at some point we'll start turning our sights back to the antique TV again and see if we can finish recapping that and see what happens when we plug it in after finishing recapping that and seeing, you know, how long it takes to put out the fire. So anyways, I need to go check the ground beef and give it a whole sniff test, and that'll determine if I'm going to start working on dinner or if I'm going to start rounding up some more ground beef and then fixing up dinner. But thank you all for tuning in, and don't forget, tomorrow, Sunday, 6 to 8 Eastern, it's the Dune and Johnny Show over on the 5-Hit Dune Twitch channel. Tomorrow, I am actually going to go check out some kind of a radio electronic swap meet thing over at MIT up in Boston. It's one of these things I've heard about that they have monthly that I've never gone to check out because it's typically the type of swap meet that you want to drive to load up stuff in the back of your car to drive home. And I don't know what the parking situation is, and I don't like city driving, so I always bow out. But I've realized, you know what? Take mass transit in, scope it out, see what it's about, walk around the area, figure out where the nearest parking is of this thing, and that way you can come up with a game plan for the next one. So yeah, I'm gonna take a trip into the city. Although Red Line is running a shuttle from South Station beyond, so I'd have to get a shuttle to get over to the MIT area from there. It's going to make it a pain in the ass, but whatever. Or I could take commuter rail. But then I still have to pick up a shuttle from South Station. Anyways, so we'll have that to talk about tomorrow on the Dune and Johnny Show. Although we'll probably never get to it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Dune, Mars, Chucklebump, OX64, I think I also saw in here, and whoever the fifth person is. You know what? I wonder if I should actually find someone to raid. Let's, you know what? I would totally raid someone right now, but remember my 5-minute rant at the start of the show about all the MFA I had to use to sign in and everything since I want a new laptop? I haven't signed into Twitch yet on this. So it would probably take me 10 minutes to get signed into Twitch so I could do a raid. So go find a good channel to watch, tell them I sent you, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Dune and Johnny Show. Bye.